Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a very exciting opportunity for us to introduce you the country we love and to share with you the wines that we love from Portugal. I'm flattered to be accompanied today by an illustrious group of people that are very pivotal for the success of the Portuguese wines, not only in Portugal, but all over the world, including the United States. I would like them to just introduce them briefly because they are going to have a chance to talk to you later and introduce their own wines. But I want you to know that we are joined today by Or Rehes. Or is the direct head, the direct Oleo Brigado portfolio. Thank you for being here, Or. We are going to be joined also by Sandra Tavares. Sandra is going to be joining us shortly. Sandra is the CEO and winemaker for Quinta de Chocapalha in Lisbon, and also for the Wine and Soul in the Douro region. We are joined today. Oh, there's Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi. I'm having some trouble. Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are also joined here. And Sandra, turn off your microphone, please. We're also joined today here by Antonio Massanita. For those of you that visit the Alentejo, you have met Antonio. You know he's famous for serving some of the longest dinners in town. It's at least 5-hour long affair, and we love hanging with Antonio. Thanks for being here, Antonio. We also have Jorge Alves. Jorge is a man about Portugal. He makes wine in every region that we love, and we love his wines, and his approach to winemaking is spotless, and we're thrilled to have you, Jorge. Sandra will be presenting 2 wines today from her family winery in Lisbon and also from hers and her husband's company in the Douro Valley. It's a treat to have Sandra. And we also have Carlos Agrelos. Carlos is a technical director and winemaker at Quinta da Romaneira, one of the most beautiful places in the Douro Valley. And I'm sure he will be thrilled to welcome you all to visit his estate. So, as you can see, I'm the least knowledgeable person in this group. I'm thrilled to have here the best of Portugal. And now I would like to invite you to go to Portugal with me. Let's do this, Christian. So, as you can see, we're going to start because our focus today is to show you how a nation with an ancient history like Portugal has is also springing forward to the future and becoming one of the most talked about wine regions in the world. In the next slides, you're going to see a sequence of pictures of Portugal. I've always liked to joke and saying, if you have no other reason to come to Portugal, because it's really ugly, architecturally speaking, there's nothing pretty about Portugal. And Christian, keep rolling these first slides, and you can see all the magnificent things throughout the country that are there for you to enjoy. Vineyard sites that are second to none in the world. My enthusiasm for Portugal goes back decades because of studying in its history, the place that Portugal occupied in the world during the age of discoveries, and monuments like this are a testament to that. And also, as we move forward with this, you see that there is an incredible array of places and a variety of sites throughout the entire country to be enjoyed. Even a beautiful city or gorgeous beaches like this in the Algarve region in the south of Portugal, and as well as some really, really extraordinary, peculiar vineyards, like this shot of a vineyard in the coast of Lisbon, just close to Lisbon, called Colares, that has one of the most endangered grape varieties in the world, called Ramisco. So moving on, we are going to talk about Portugal because for the sake of the argument, for those of you that have not been lucky enough to be to Portugal, it stretches way far into the Atlantic, becoming the southwestern coast of Europe. and probably the farthest point in the continental Europe that you can get. However, Portugal, with this incredible history of winemaking, 2000 BC is when viticulture has been dated. Portugal makes wine in every single region, but it's in a very small area. Portugal is only 350 miles long by 150 miles wide. To put in perspective, for those of you that are in California, California is four times the size of Portugal. Now, if you're in Texas, this becomes even more fun because Texas is about 7.5 times bigger than Portugal. Now, it is mind-boggling to me that within that small area, Portugal has viticulture all over. And the percentage of the total vineyards is one of the highest in the world. On the next slide, you will see also that in this very small area, Portugal is actually able to make quite an impact on the global scheme of things. The 9th largest wine producer, 11th largest wine exporter is number 9, 2.6 of the global share. But one of my favorite things to talk about is that Portugal, before COVID, was the number 1 per capita in wine consumption in the world, which shows you that that small population, it's not that small population drinks a lot. It's like us. We go to Portugal and we fall in love with the wine and we drink a lot and we share with everyone. So Portugal has really been springing out of into notoriety. On the next slide, we'll see that the success of Portugal is due to a lot of the variety, the plant variety that is found in Portugal. It is really uncanny that in such a small area, that such a small area was able to harbor 250 native varieties. And when I say native, I'm not even touching on the endemic varieties, the ones that moved from Spain or shifted from somewhere else or came from France. These are varieties that are actually Iberian by nature, and most of them in the southern part of the Iberian Peninsula. And due to DNA studies become available to us, we were unable to trace these grape varieties back to the Caucasus Mountains or to the Middle East. So, which led scientists to deduct that these are actually wild vines from the Iberian Peninsula. On the next slide, I can show you that this Vitis sylvestris, which is this species, survived on the Iberian Peninsula because 20,000 years ago, the whole northern part of Europe was covered in ice, and life always finds a way, and life migrated towards the warmer edges of the Iberian Peninsula, the southern part, which is, by coincidence, the Mediterranean side of Portugal, and that's where this Vitis sylvestris developed in isolation. On the next slide, you see here the concentration of the native grape varieties, which places Portugal in first place for the most indigenous variety per 1,000 square kilometers in Europe. I could swear before I saw this map, I could swear it would have been Italy, but Portugal, because of this small area, the concentration is much more dense, which makes me so proud that the Portuguese embrace the native varieties with such passion and with such dedication to maintain and to preserve these treasures. On the next slide, we'll see that Portugal is basically cornered, squeezed between two massive climatic forces. Portugal has two neighbors. Spain, as you can see, all the area in white, going from the beaches on the Algarve all the way to the cool coastline of Vinho Verde. That is all Spain. Then the other influence is the Atlantic. So here we have two massive powers battling for your attention. The Atlantic brings in moisture, coolness, fog, and quite salty winds, which really inform the character of the wines, the coastal wines of Portugal. On the other side, you have the continental influence. And as if you've ever traveled through the interior of Spain, especially during the summertime, you know how hot it can get. But it's also quite dry. So we have these two forces competing for attention in Portugal. And this push and pull happens constantly, moderating the temperature throughout the country and also making the country almost entirely a Mediterranean influenced country. There is a little bit of more marked influence in the south of Portugal, in the Algarve region and some parts of the Alentejo. But for the sake of the discussion today, the majority of the massive forces that we talk when referring to Portugal would be Atlantic and also the continental. As opposed to California, for example, the mountain ranges in Portugal or the west coast of the US, the mountain ranges don't hug the coastline. They are away, they're inland. So coastal vineyards look like this. They are verdant, they're beautiful, they're lush, green, and bright. And this encompasses the regions of Vinho Verde, Bairrada, Lisboa, Peninsula de Setúbal, the Açores or the Azores, and Madeira. Now, as you can see on the Peninsula de Setúbal, the Portuguese made our lives a lot easier. So don't complain you can't pronounce it, because they put an accent marking the emphasis. So it's Peninsula de Setúbal. So now this is an area near Lisbon that is quite breathtaking. On the next slide, you see what difference it makes to be close or away from the ocean. And these are the hills on inland, on the Douro region, the Trás-os-Montes, Douro, Porto e Douro. They, especially because they are abutting against Spain, the weather can be quite dramatic here. And we also have regions in the center north called Távora and Barossa, down Beira Interior, Tejo, and the Alentejo. On the next slide, you'll see the only exception to this whole thing, which is a Mediterranean southern coast of Portugal, which has the beaches of the Algarve and the old vineyards and sandy soils in the Algarve. So moving on from this, what we want to show you also is that it is not for nothing that Portugal can make such an extreme array of wines and such great quality wine, because the soil types in Portugal, the variety of it allows for the Portuguese winemakers to have a lot to work with. The terroirs here are so varied. For example, the top half of the country away from the coast is a very mountainous, rugged area. The southern part, with a few exceptions of mountainous areas, is more formed with rolling hills, but also with a very, very incredible variation in soil types. You can see a huge band of granite, and we're going to taste wines today that come from the areas that are solely planted in granitic soils. You see the schist soils on the Douro Valley up top, which are legendary. And going towards the Alentejo, you have everything. They're very greedy. They have every type of soil, so they can play with a variety of things. And towards the coast in Lisbon, you have a presence of like limestone or clay limestone, and also some varied sandy type soils. On the next slide, you can understand the Portuguese wines quite easily. Okay, there are three categories. Instead of France, that every region has their own classification, we have vinho in Portugal, which is the table wines that we don't need to discuss about it, because this is a very simple entry-level wines in Portugal. They are not bound by any rules or laws and regulations. The two categories that are mostly interesting to us are the vinho regional, or the IGP regions, which there are 14 of them, and the DOC or DOP, there are 31 of them. So this is where the regulations really jump in to really assert that the wines are done in an appropriate way, and that they are firm representations and solid representations, not only of the varietal, but the traditions of winemaking of the regions. And who does that? A commission called CVR. On the next slide, I will describe to you what the work of these CVRs are. All these regions have their own CVR. Each one of them oversees just that region. This is a body of elected officials that are in charge of maintaining or judging to maintain the regional character of the wines. They also put boundaries on yields sometimes, or on grape varieties that can be planted, grant permission for technical issues like irrigation and other things. And also, above all, they taste and classify and certify the wines of the region. I was put through the test once in the Alentejo, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. I've done that in a few regions because it is triple blind tasting. The bottles that are submitted to the CVRs only have a barcode on it that only the person that receives that ever sees who brought them in. And then it goes to all the other processes. By the time you get to your glass, you have no idea what you're tasting. So it is quite exciting about this. So on the next slide, we will see that the production of wine is varied. Sandra, I believe you have two microphones, and one is on and one is off. You could turn that off. I'm getting a little background. So you see here that the production of wine is still with the Douro leading the pack with 23%. Followed by the Alentejo, which is coming up strong, and then Lisbon, the region of Beiras. And you can see there is a lot of the wines. There was a little bit of a corruption on the translation here, but the other pie on the right-hand side in blue is a representation of all the wines that have the status of DOP. And in orange, we have the Vinho Regional. So you see that blue line alone is about 49%. So 49% of the wines made in Portugal have the status of being a DOC. So on the next slide, we're going to see that, in my point of view, Portugal has changed dramatically. And I think the history of Portuguese wines will be written and talked about pre-1986 and post-1986. 1986 is when Portugal joined the European Union, and with that comes a lot of incentives, a lot of investments, and the wine sector was benefited highly for it because of the arrival and the improvements in the winemaking, the arrival of technology that really helped and brought forth a new generation of winemakers, some of them on this call, that became really interested in the wine business again. I always say, you need to modernize the industry to attract a new generation. And this really changed the way Portugal saw things. And Portugal is now also leading the pack on the discussion of global warming and how the grape varieties are going to react to the changing climate. And there's a lot of updates being done in the vineyards, a lot of clonal biodiversity. There's wineries planting oceanographic vineyards with more than 100 varieties to test and to observe these varieties throughout this new wave of climate change. On the next slide, I'm just hate to share the screen with this lady because then she will definitely make me shut up and everybody just wanted to listen to her. Jensen Robinson, one of the most respected wine professionals in the world, praises that Portugal, for 13 years of all the wines that she tasted, Portugal ranks number one in average for the red wines that she tasted, scoring above 16.5 points on a scale to 20. Wine Spectator paid us a great homage a few years ago, and Mitch Frank also says that 43% ranks 90 points and above. I don't know if you all remember, but a few years back, Portugal took the number 1, 3, and 4 of the top wines in the world. I'm sorry, there's been a few years. I will still brag about it to the day I die, because that was the first time that this ever happened, and we were so thrilled. Next, my colleague Sophia, when her and I shared this slide, I was so excited. I think she was more excited than I was, because in 2017 in Provine in Düsseldorf, the Geisenheim University conducted a research. This research was about discovering what are the people looking for? Why are they here for? There were 1,500 interviews conducted with professionals from 46 countries, and Portugal came in fourth. Of course, my team and I were all celebrating, and then I started thinking, wait, there is gold medal, there's silver medal and bronze medal if you're thinking on the Olympics. Everybody else lost. So I'm not going to celebrate number 4. But and then I was proven wrong. On the next slide, in 2018 and 2019, Portugal jumped to number 1. So you can see the growth, the exponential growth in curiosity about Portugal is thrilling to us, because it means that the winemakers that are here present are doing the right thing. People like me that can't shut up about Portugal are doing the right thing, because we are praising a wine region that was really captivating and capturing people's attention and passion. So on the next slide, you see that also there's not only good wine being made in Portugal, people really dig traveling to Portugal because the Portuguese are super friendly. The country is beautiful. It's very easy to travel throughout Portugal, and Portugal is a world-leading destination in terms of tourism. And the region of Lisbon in particular, Sandra will be happy with that, keeps getting awards as the favorite. Antonio will be happy that the New York Times did a huge article last year on the Alentejo region. So there is not one better than the other. There's just everywhere you turn in Portugal, there is beauty and there is great wine to be tasted. On the next slide, I humbly put together a few thoughts of my own when I was a sommelier. When I was running the wine, I was the wine director for the Jardinier restaurant in San Francisco for 12 years. I've always wanted, let's be honest, if there are sommeliers in this call, you always wanted to have one up on everybody else. Come on. You wanted your list to have a touch of originality, something unique that you were the first to discover. And I was in. When Portugal brought me, when it started coming to the US market, I thought that there was a breath of fresh air. The varieties, the great varieties that I never heard of before. The flavors, the distinct aspect of being very, what the Portuguese call gastronomic wines, meaning the wines go really well with food, and the price-quality ratio was unbeatable. My colleagues would say, oh, I can't pronounce those names. I can't say Touriga Nacional. And I was like, were you born knowing how to say Zinomavro? I wasn't. Or Grunevelina? No, I learned. So don't be lazy and don't worry about what's on the label. Enjoy what's in the glass, because I promise you, your guests, your customers will enjoy what's in the glass wholeheartedly. So now we're going to start wine tasting, because the worst kind of presentation is the one that talks about wine and never serves you wine. By now, you should have the first wine on your glass. And this comes from the region of Vinho Verde. Vinho Verde is the north of Portugal, and we can move slides, please. It's a very interesting region because it has 3 boundaries that are very hard to miss. One on the north is the Minho River that separates it from Spain. On the south is almost to the Douro, passes the Douro River a little bit, but the Douro is also another river making the boundaries on the south. To the west, it's the Atlantic. To the east are the mountains. So the Portuguese, it has this incredible, the Vinho Verde region has this incredible geographic position, and that combined with granitic soils, heavy Atlantic influence. Look at how much it rains in Minho compared to Napa Valley or Bordeaux, 2 of the most famous regions in the world. And you can see that this is a drenched region. And there is about 9 subzones that all producing very unique wines. On the next slide, you see here on the bottom left that the grape varieties are not just the one you think of, or the wines are not all blends. We have, for example, the Loureiro grape making a great push. Arinto, which started off near Sandra's winery in Lisbon, and now is spread all over the country because of the ability of that grape variety to retain acidity. The Alvarinho, which the Spanish mistakenly called Albarino, or is laughing, and Trajadura, and also there's red wine and rosé wine being made in the region. But now I would like to invite Or Rejes from Ole Obrigado, because this first wine comes from their portfolio, and I'm so excited, Or, that you brought us 100% Alvarinho that I am thrilled to taste with you. Please take us through this.
My pleasure, Eugenio, and thank you so much for this presentation and introduction. So as Eugenio said, we are in the north, and this wine is called Nortico. So this comes from a few vineyards, all on the banks of the Minho River, which is the natural border between Spain and Portugal, on the south bank, of course, and near the towns, the subregions of Monção and Melgaço, which are the birthplace of Alvarinho. And this wine really shows all the hallmark traits of Alvarinho: the fresh citrus, the peach, the tropical aromas, all wrapped in a very clean and food forward wine. But we have a lot of winemakers on this presentation, and like any winemaker will tell you, you can put a wine in a tank and make it taste like citrus and peach and tropical aromas. What really separates Nortico Alvarinho from other wines is the salinity that you get from being so close to the Atlantic Ocean, and that granitic minerality, that texture on the palate that separates Nortico from other wines and makes it not just great as a standalone wine to drink on your porch, but as Eugenio said, a gastronomic experience. You can eat it with oysters, with octopus, of course, bacalhau, the one of the hallmark Portuguese dishes. I hope you're all enjoying it as much as me in this scorching hot day here in New Jersey. So cheers to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Or. I appreciate you bringing the gastronomic aspect of the wine into it. And for those of you that don't know, Monção and Melgaço are regions in Portugal that are actually unlike the Spaniards' vineyards of Alvarinho. This is a little bit away from the ocean, so it gets a little bit of a warmer climate, a little bit more sunshine, and develop these fabulous aromas. To me, I almost got like a grilled peaches because of with sea salt. That to me was a tremendous note on this wine. Thank you so much, Or. Now we're moving to the gorgeous region of Lisbon. On the bottom corner of this picture, you see Sandra's home. She lives there just part-time because it's a little small, but that's the Palace of Pena. For those of you who have not been to Sintra, which is a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO Heritage Site, this is one of the royal palaces that you get to visit. It is extraordinary. So the region of Lisbon, on the next slide, I can show you that it straddles along the coast. And it is really interesting because it goes up from the city of Lisbon, which is right below the number 09 on the map. And it's just go northeast. It's a very thin wine region. It stretches long, but as I mentioned in the beginning, the mountains in Portugal are in the interior. They're not on the coast. But this region is really interesting because of a mixture of small little inland valleys and lower mountain ranges that really funnel in this Atlantic influence. The wine that we're going to be having is from the region number 5 here, and you can see is from Alenquer, which is where Sandra's family have restored this beautiful historic state. And her father's in the vineyard every day. I know, I've seen it. Takes great care of this great varieties. They specialize here in the region of Lisbon on all these great varieties listed on the left-hand side, which are Portuguese. But there's also an allowance here in Portugal or in this specific Lisbon region for international varieties. The beauty of it is that the international varieties never dominate the blends. They are always a little spice. They are added as part of the whole, but they don't dominate the wine. And now on the wine number 2 that you probably have received on this cute little bottle, we have a wine from Sandra. Then I would like to invite Sandra Tavares. I think you all will enjoy a lot more to look and to hear from Sandra than me. But this is the Quinta da Chocapalha. It is 100% Arinto, a fascinating grape from Lisbon. Sandra, take it away.
Hi, many thanks for having us, and it's a great pleasure to be here, and especially to hear Eugenio, all your speak and the marvelous words about Portugal. Chocapalha, it's a family property. It's a family. It was my parents that decided to change their life and move to a property. So they bought this estate in '87. It's a very beautiful estate that was that is originally from the 16th century. So it's a very old house, and we have 80 hectares of land, but only 50 hectares of vineyards. And mainly, it's what you almost said, almost everything. So the what's really special on this estate, it's really the climate. So we have a very Atlantic influence, but we are protected from some mountains that don't let the direct wind from the ocean comes in. And we have the Monte Junto. It's a big mountain that protects us from the winds from the north. So it creates a very moisty, very cool during the nights, but during the day it can be warm. So, and this really makes the very fantastic ripening cycle very long, always with very good acidity and very good humidity on the grapes, even in summer. So this permits us to produce very classic wines. And Lisbon, it's a very old wine region, especially other parts, and especially on where we are. So our estate is one of the many others that are very old. And so it's very special to work there. So we have the soil, it's clay, calcareous, and my father, when he decided to recover this property, he really focused in Arinto. So it's a native variety, one of our oldest varieties in Portugal, and we really love this expression of terroir, of identity of the place. It's very pure, it's very, very fresh, with an intense acidity, but still it's not so intense on aromas. So it's a very focused on style, and it has a lot of salinity also because of the proximity of the ocean. So I think it's a fantastic wine to pair with many different dishes, as Aura was saying. So I love it with oysters, with scallops, or with seafood, or whatever. Even without anything, it's fantastic white wine to enjoy and to discover a new variety, because Arinto is really a special variety. For me, it's one of the best white varieties.
Well, thank you, Sandra. And Sandra can be confirmed by everybody else on this call, because Arinto used to be just localized in the Lisbon region, and now it's spread all over the country because of its ability to retain acidity. It is a magical grape variety to me. And also, I love the salinity, so pronounced. And that makes it the savory character of wine, to me, becomes immediately a food wine. So for those of you that are looking for the summer patio pounder there at 12% alcohol, this is unbeatable. These two white wines are like, you don't need anything else. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
And now moving on our tour of Portugal, we get to one of my favorite places in Portugal. If I can say that I have a favorite place, the Alentejo is so beautiful. The landscape is so dry, but so romantic at the same time, because all these hills covered in olive trees and cork trees, and it is quite a step back in time, if you may. On the next slide, we'll see a little facts about the Alentejo region. It takes they call it the southern Portugal, but it's actually that region 01. It's above Lisbon. So it's central. It's central and then south. But it occupies a third of the country with only 1/10 of the population. 5% of it is with vines, because this region was determined and chosen to be the breadbasket of Portugal. This is a very large agricultural zone with very varied climates, very soil types, as you remember from that map They have everything. One day I was driving with a winemaker here in the region, and Antonio can tell you more about this. Within 15 minutes in the car, we went to a vineyard and I was collecting rocks. I collected schist. On the next vineyard, I collected clay limestone. On the next vineyard, I collected marble pieces. It was like, I have never seen anything like it. And if you've ever seen a vineyard planted in marble soils, it's something to see. Just like the granite vineyards in the Alentejo and the schist vineyards on the Douro. But anyway, there are 8 subregions. As you can see, the southern part it's a little bit too hot for winemaking. We are stopping in Moura. And Antonio is going to tell us about his specific region because here's a place where, because of the variety of soils, you can play with a lot of grape varieties, including international grape varieties. You can see here Alicante Boucher. It doesn't sound like a Portuguese word or words, but Alicante Boucher is making a home here. Arinto, as you can see, traveled south and makes spectacular wines here, especially on blends. But the Holy Grail, it's around Touriga Nacional, Aragonês, Trancadeira, Alicante Boucher. And Antonio, I would like to invite you to come up and tell us. I can't resist. I always put this picture there because it makes my heart sink when I see the Alentejo, and I miss it so much. But the wine that is actually on the next slide, this is what Antonio is going to talk about. I love the name of this wine, a Touriga vai nua. That means the Touriga goes naked. Antonio, tell us why you undressed.
Well, hello everyone. So short presentation of myself. I'm a winemaker. My mother's from Alentejo. My father is from the Azores. They met in Lisbon and had 3 beautiful kids. So this is what my mother keeps telling me. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and a teacher of that university told me to go to agronomy. So I went to study agronomy, fell in love with vineyards, viticulture, and so I went to work a little bit in the US till I came to Portugal. So I started a little bit from scratch. I did the US, Australia, France before I came to Portugal. And so it was a project with no vineyard, no winery. So the first production was 2004, buying fruit. So that's our beginning. Regarding this wine, I'm a big fan of Touriga Nacional. Touriga Nacional, in a certain way, has such a distinctive aroma as a grape varietal that it's very, very floral. So it's one of the most aromatic red grape varietals that I've worked with, and a lot of times say, well, people will say it smells like chocolate, or it smells like toffee, or it smells, and I was like, that's not Touriga Nacional, that's the smell of how it was treated, I was aged. So it's an academic Touriga Nacional. I wanted to strip it from any other intervention. So from a simple point of view, the aging is tank aging in very short. The vineyards are classic schist soil, so we're in the Serra d'Ossa mountain. There is an important mountain in Alentejo. There is the result of 2 mainlands. So African continent went underneath the European continent plate, and so Serra d'Ossa emerged. So it's really a little bit like Douro, but Douro is even older soil, but it's really, really old soil that has been compressed from the bottom of the ocean up. So that's going to define all the let's say the soil types that Eugenio has referred, that they come from a lot of geologic accidents. So it gives us a lot to play with. So for sure, we know that it handles schist. I was happy with it, but I started working it, as a principle. We're hand-picking this. We're picking it at night, so we are in a warm climate. Classic warm climate, very warm days, very cold nights. It's 35 at the moment, 35 degrees Celsius. Eugenio, if you can convert to, so it's pretty warm. We are 60 miles from the ocean. So we still have some moderate. So if you keep moving towards Spain, it gets more continental and warmer. We have.
Well, Antonio, thank you. We have been having some trouble with your connection, or maybe you can recommend him to move indoors and close it. No, we lost contact with you a little bit, but thank you, Antonio. I would probably recommend you to move closer to the modem and for the next for the time when we go to the breakout rooms. But what I like about this wine is what Antonio was saying, is that it really shows the true character of the grape variety Touriga Nacional. As you all know, you're going to taste quite a few now. Next, there are blends. But the important part is that Touriga Nacional is becoming king or queen of Portugal. And to taste it like unadulterated like this is a good introduction to the way we're going to move forward. On the next wine, thank you, Antonio. On the next wine, we are moving up north to the region of the Douro. So the Douro region, as you know, needs no introduction. One, it is one of the most beautiful vineyard areas in the world. If you have not been, this picture does not make justice. But then again, you're in luck, because every corner, every turn on the road, there's a more spectacular vineyard. And some of these next three guests have the advantage of seeing that almost on a daily basis, which makes me extremely jealous. So on the next slide, I'm going to tell you about the fact that this region was basically brought forth or made famous by the production of port wines that have been reported to be shipped to England since the 12th century. It was also the first demarcated and regulated region in the world in 1756. The then Prime Minister, Marquis de Pombal, established that Douro port can only be produced within these boundaries, and they literally marked the boundaries with these obelisks of granite, these markers that are still some in existence. And then later on, the UNESCO just took a drive-by and said, oh my God, this is incredible. So the vineyards have been named a World Heritage Site. It is an incredible region because the river plays a big part on it, but it is protected by mountains on both sides. And this is a schist soil that is kind of cracked vertically, because this is the Douro River that in Spain is called the Duero, that came through Portugal and pushed aside this massive amount of mountains. But the schist, because it was more malleable, is a decaying form of a slate. It was easy to push out of the way, easy, quote unquote, to push out of the way and form this incredible valley. On the next slide, you will see that there's three basic regions here. The blue one is the closest to Spain. That's the border with Spain. Okay, that's Douro Superior. The newest, the driest, the more recent region that is producing a lot of wine to supply to a lot of demand for Douro Reds. The middle, the red zone, is where all these winemakers here hail from, is the Cima Corgo. I've always wondered, before I started reading about Portugal, I was like, why don't they say Cima Douro? Because there is a little tiny tributary called Corgo that is almost the boundary between Cima Corgo and Baixo Corgo. So it's either below the Corgo or above the Corgo. And that gave the name to the region. Cima Corgo seems to be the most prestigious region where most of the historic vineyards are located. Now, there's also three types of vineyards, which I will tell you here, and then I'll demonstrate it later. Socalcos is the oldest type. These are the old vines. They are planted in very skinny, tiny little terraces, hanging on for dear life. Sandra knows very well about those vineyards because she had to recover a lot of them. Patamares, which are the more modern ones, they're wider. And then there's Vinhas ao Alto, that is just plain craziness. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you all three. So if you look at the top left corner of the Douro of these vineyards, you see the ones that are the least green of them all, with a white road going right in between them. Those are the Socalcos. They are tiny little, skinny little terrace, one row of vine per terrace, and they are very old. A lot of these vineyards are above 100 years, above 80 years is an average. Right below that, you see wider rows that have a retaining wall. Those are called the patamares. Patamares were developed because of the increased demand for wines. They needed to plant more and have a better use of the space, and you can have 4 to 6 rows per patamar, which makes it easier to harvest and make more profitable. And then if you look all the way to the top, at the top of the highest mountain in the center, you see these vineyards that go straight down the hill from the top. They call it Vinhos ao Alto. I say it's just a nightmare because it's so steep. It is such an incredible feat to plant and to treat these vineyards and to harvest from these vineyards. That they are a wonder to me. So this is just another corner of the Douro Valley. If you haven't been, if you need another reason to go, this is it. So on the next slide, we are going to tell you about the 5 top grape varieties of the Douro Valley, which are Touriga Franca, which is the most planted, Touriga Tinta Roriz, which is the Spanish Tempranillo. In the south, they call it Aragonês. On the north, they call it Tinta Roriz. Touriga Nacional, the queen or the king, depends who you ask, Tinta Barroca and Tintucão. Days after phylloxera and the replantings were necessary, there was a question of what to replant with, and these 5 varieties seem to have given better results. However, there are about 60 varieties that are native to this area of Portugal, so they have a lot to choose from, including some spectacular white wines. So on the next slide, we are going to now invite Jorge Alves from Quinta Nova to show us this version of a Douro, but with a twist. This is an oaked wine with some of the classic grape varieties of the area. And Jorge, I am thrilled to have you here. Love talking wine with you, and I'm just can't wait to taste this wine with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jen, for your wonderful words about Portugal and about the Douro region. Just 2 words about the Quinta Nova. Quinta Nova is a state from the beginning of the demarcation of the region, 1764. So 8 years later than the foundation of the demarcated region of the Douro. And it has a long story, of course, producing basically port wine. And in 1999, Amorim family, which are well known in the world for the production of cork, they just bought the Quinta Nova. And in 2005, we start to produce red wines from Quinta Nova instead of port wine. And this particular wine starts this style, and oaked, the purity of the Quinta Nova, starts in 2005. I bring today the 2018 vintage because it shows very well what is a classic wine from Quinta Nova, only with the expression of the local grape varieties, Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franca, and Tinta Roriz and Tinta Amarela. Different plots, vineyards from 35 to 45 years old, fermentation at low temperature between 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, just to keep the purity of the aromas and the juicy and the succulent tannins. And at the same time, we do an aging for 1 year in the stainless steel tanks, and we did rack the wine 2 times per mount, just to add a little bit of oxygen to promote the aging of the wine. It's quite easy to do this style of the wine, but the problem is that we have the at least 3 varieties that are very reductive and tends to the wine becomes reductive on the nose. So we need to rack them and add oxygen to time them out. But it's a beautiful style. It's a style that shows very well what we are doing at the Quinta Nova, the purity, the succulent, the vibrant, the multi-layered fruity style with a good structure, very dynamic, seductive on the aromas, luscious on the palate. So it's very, very nice and a good style, young, modern. I will leave it to you, Eugene, the gastronomy, which is your specialty. Okay.
George, I have to tell you, this wine makes me smile really broadly because I'm a big proponent of less oak makes better wine. So to have these varieties to show to these to everyone that is here joining us, and perhaps for the first time having grape varieties or wines from the Douro Valley, I am thrilled that you get an opportunity to taste an exciting, vibrant wine like this. This is a wine of place. This is not a wine of process. And it's very interesting because there are some incredible variation of styles. And we're going to go to 2 more. I mean, between these 3 guys here, you need to go no further to see what the Douro has best to offer. Thank you, George. And next, I want to invite again our lovely Sandra Tavares. Sandra is a very accomplished winemaker, as you know. And one thing that you see that is very rare here, she's the only lady speaking. And she also has the honor of being the first female winemaker in the Douro Valley. I had an opportunity to taste one time with her mentor, Cristiano Van Zeller, and Cristiano told me that Sandra knew about viticulture, about winemaking, about vineyards, and she had that extra thing that you can't teach. And I agree wholeheartedly, Sandra. Welcome back, and we love your wines. And please tell us about the Wine and Soul 2017 Pintas character.
Thank you, Eugenio, for your words. It's so kind of you. So Pintas character is one of our wines from Wine and Soul. So Wine and Soul, it's a company that I formed with George, my husband. We are both winemakers. And even we are both from wine families. I had a property in Lisbon, and I was working with Cristiano Van Zeller for 15 years. George as well was working with his family and also with Newport. He was a winemaker there. We decided in the same year that we got married, we decided to start a company together from scratch. So we wanted really to be focused in very old vines, especially in Valmendige. So we are based, and I'm here in Valmendige. It's where we have our winery, and mainly majority of our vineyards are very close from where I am. And we decided to produce wines with the character of old vineyards, with field blends specifically from this valley. And Pinhão Valley has a very different style, and that's what we really fascinated us since the beginning, and that's why we decided to invest a lot. So we started from scratch. So we started buying grapes in 2001. So this year is our 20th anniversary. And then step by step we've been buying vineyards, very old vines. First vineyard was Pintas, and then in 2005 we decided to make another red from vineyards that surrounded Pintas vineyard. So this is 5 different plots, but very close from each other and very close from Pintas vineyard, all here in Valmendige area. Old vines, field blend, very steep slopes, high density, a density of 6,000 plants an hectare. And we have around 35 varieties all mixed. So since the beginning, we decided to make a very traditional vinification. So it's all food trollen in lagares, in granitic lagares, and very non-interventive vinification. So what we really love is to understand the vineyards, and then we in the winery we just protect the fruit. And after the fermentation, this wine was aged for 18 months, but mainly very neutral barrels for about 18 months. And I think it's a wine that really expresses and as the identity of these old vines from the Douro, with expression of lot of fruit, but freshness, very good acidity because it's very old vines, and also some herbal notes from the bushes that we always protect, these wild bushes, wild forests that we have surrounding the vineyards, and olive trees. So for us, this is very important, this biodiversity that we have in the vineyards.
And
so I think it's really a wine that expresses Douro in a classic
and
style.
Sandra, if I'm not mistaken, you have a very particular way to name your vineyard, right? What Pintas?
Yeah, so Pintas first vineyard was the name of our dog, because we didn't have any name, and we were just starting, and so we decided to call the name of our dog, which was a pointer, so full of spots. Pintas means spots, and that's how we started. So, and that's how all our brands have different names, because we started from scratch. So that's our style.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that story with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The wine is fantastic. And one thing Carlos is also going to talk to us about this is, Carlos, one thing that I hear in Portugal every single time, Sandra told me that word so many times. In Portuguese is frescura, and in English will be freshness. And I am astounded by how our wine can be so powerful, like these wines that we're tasting can retain such freshness. You are at Quinta da Romaneira, which I can easily say, I don't know if it is because of the Brazilian Association, but I think it's one of the most beautiful estates I have ever seen. And just to get there is an adventure, especially at night. Carlos, tell us about the work you were doing at Romaneira, because I have noticed an improvement on the quality of the wines that is just hard to keep up with. And I would love to hear from you about it.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Eugênio. Thank you for the kind words. There's much to be said about Romaneira. This is a very old estate in the Douro. Its initial registry goes back to 1757. And it's been owned by various families throughout its history. And then the recent ownership is since 2004, where a consortium led by Christian Seeley bought the estate. And since then, the state undertook a vast replanting program, and it now has 85 hectares of 14 different varieties growing on it. In fact, as you say, it's a breathtaking property on the right bank of the River Douro. And overall, it's just above 1,100 acres. So it's quite big. And the vineyard is centered in the estate with roughly 210 acres. And all that contributes for the terroir of Romaneira, because we have a vast biodiversity of plants surrounding the vineyard, and the wines are truly different from other wines I make in other states in the Douro. It's fascinating. A little bit about myself. I'm from a wine family, and I'm the 5th generation in the Douro. And I joined the Romaneira team in January 2017. So in fact, this wine was vinified by my uncle, who has since retired, and I blended the wine in 2017. Let me get in the Romaneira estate. It's fascinating because it ranges from an altitude of 130 meters above sea level up to 530 meters, where on the low altitudes we have the grapes for mostly port wines and most of our red wines, and obviously in altitude we make our white wines. I think you touched a very important thing that everyone actually does talk about, which is the frescura, the freshness in the wine. And that is probably one of the most important characteristics that a wine has or needs to be good. And that is equally said for port wine. Port wine as a sweet wine, if it doesn't have a counterbalance of acidity, it won't go down that well. And I think our job as winemakers, all of us here, when we're tasting the fruit in the vineyard, is exactly knowing the point where the total acidity and the pH is adequate for the wines we want to make. And the best wines are invariably the ones that keep the natural freshness and not the added tartaric acid, for instance, that is absolutely legal. But the wines tend to be a little harder sometimes.
And you tend to notice it. Yeah, and you tend to notice when it's adjusted. And this is obviously a very pure example of it.
Yes, well, let me just talk just briefly about the wine. So of course, the wine you have here is a Quinta da Romaneira 2015. It's actually called Quinta da Romaneira because it was launched initially in 2004, and it was the only wine that Quinta da Romaneira produced. And now we actually produce 9 different red wines. And this wine, it's very interesting because it's a blend of 4 varieties. It's the Touriga Nacional, the Touriga Francesa, the Tinta Roriz, and Tinto Cão. Tinto Cão is also a fascinating variety that we work with. We actually have a single variety wine of Tinto Cão. And this wine here expresses, in my view, a very earthy, spicy side to it. So it's not a clear, fruity, floral wine. It's rather on the earthy, spicy side of things, which is also a true Douro on its own. And very on the other opposite side of the wine that Jorge presented, this wine is actually 100% is aged in wood, 100%. But only 5% is new oak. So we don't want really a new oak in the wine. So I hope you like it. I think that the tannins are very well tamed, and it's the excellent time to drink this wine. It's 5 years old, and I tend to like Douro wines with some age on them. So
I think
5
you're
years
absolutely
is the optimum.
I think you are absolutely correct. And I want to just thank everyone and all the winemakers that are present here. I could hear you talk all day long instead of hearing myself talk. But Catherine has a better plan for all of us. And that's what I wish to continue with. Thank you all for your time. All of us.
Great. Eugenio, would you like me to go ahead and ask the questions, or do you want to pull them out?
Please, why don't you?
Great. I'm happy to. So let's go ahead. I see that there's a question from Tony of Or, what is the age of the vines for your Alvarinho?
So Nortico comes from roughly 80 different plots on the Minho River. Some are as old as 100 years. Some are as young as planted in 2005, and anything in between. So that's another what gives you that great complexity in an unoaked young wine. It's all the age of the vine. Some give you a lot of fruit. Some gives you more that mineral depth.
That's wonderful. Tony, any other follow-up questions to that? Okay. Okay, great. Good. Then we'll move on. We have a question from Eric. What are the challenges to organic production in the Douro? So I don't know who would like to go first.
Also, whoever has children in the room, can you please turn off the microphone?
There's a lot to be said about organic. Can you hear me?
Yes. All good.
Well, it really depends. There are a lot of variables on the line to go organic. But I think everyone is open and doing a lot of organic things in the vineyard. Ourselves, we already have some hectares under 100% organic farming, and we're testing that reality and to see the overall quality of the produce at the end, and see how much can we extend, or if we can ever extend to the whole of the property. There are a lot of financial implications, obviously, in doing so, and these are all businesses run by, so it's all very serious, and that's always on the table.
But Carlos, is there a climatic
viticulture is something that we all do, and we apply less and less pesticides or any other chemicals to our vines every year. We reduce the quantity, and I think we are looking more to biodiversity around the vineyard and within the vineyard than actually going organic or biodynamic. We have nothing against it. As I said, we have some parcels under organic viticulture, but biodiversity and tending to the soils for us is very important. The microbiome and microbiota, when we're talking of soils, that's very important.
Carlos, I guess, Catherine, if I can jump in, I think the question also sometimes refers to the fact of like, what's the challenge mean? Is the soil, the climate, the disease attack, stress? What is it that makes it challenging? And Sandra, please feel free to jump in as well. What is the most challenging thing about converting vineyards to organic farming?
I think the most challenging nowadays to convert to organic, and we are almost 100% organic, but it's nowadays it's the lack of labor. So, and our vineyards are all in very steep slopes. So majority everything has to be done by hand. We can't put a tractor in, so it's all very handcrafted. So, and we are doing it. So, but sometimes it's very difficult because we are getting very difficult to get labor. So that's the question, the main question. But as Carlos was saying, it's very important. And for us, since the beginning, the biodiversity we are having in the vineyards and protecting, and around the vineyards, we have all these bushes and wildflowers, and to get in the bees and other birds or some that will protect from some plagues. So we are not using any insecticides or pesticides or everything, and we create always a green between the vineyards in order to also to get in more bees or more diversity in order to protect from plagues.
And George, I neglected to say how beautiful Quinta Nova is, because it was one of the first estates I've ever visited in the Douro, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta come back here somehow, and then visited with Sandra and with Carlos. But in your point of view, what is Quinta Nova doing in terms of agriculture? And like Sandra was saying, and Carlos was saying, is there a push in the Douro as a culture to go more towards organic farming?
Eugene, the Douro region is probably the region in the world, with some of them probably in Napa or in South California or in warm climates in Australia, that are using the less amount of chemicals per hectare during the year. So typical diseases in France, like downy mildew or even the powdery mildew, for us didn't exist. So we do, even this particular year, we did like 2 treatments during all the season. So it's basically nothing. If we compare with Bordeaux, they did already 8 treatments, and Burgundy probably 10, more the anti-frost system. So as a region with low inputs on the chemicals on the vineyard, the Douro, it's probably one of the most organic vineyard in the world. But we are not certified. That this is another problem. So we are speaking always, organic or non-organic. certified or not non-certified. And in the Douro, or in the Quinta Nova particularly, we have 1 hectare in organic, and it's already certified as organic vineyard and organic grapes. If we are making organic wine, not yet. So we will go further to the biodynamic next year and try to produce a biodynamic style of wine with the certification of Demeter. So I think we are learn our potential to do organic wines, but at high standards of quality. Okay, because in a few countries, like in France, for example, organic wines are connoted with a medium quality wines or even low quality, because a lot of time they have problems, faults, bad aromas, like natural wine. So it's all another world. So we are just trying. As you say, Eugene, we are so new on the wine production of these new styles of wine that first we want to be more consistent on the high quality production of conventional wines or sustainable wines. And then step by step, of course, we'll arrive to the new ways of production and sustainability and organic and biodynamics. We need to go. It's the future.
Thank you, George. That's brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. Catherine, I think there are a couple of very cool questions that popped up here.
There are.
I can see your eyes going.
Yes, I see so many questions popping up. We do have one for Carlos, and that question is, what do you think the conical stainless vats bring or add to the wine? Or is it what they don't bring?
Okay, I think that it's more what they bring to what we do. Not everyone uses them, but for the délestage that we usually do 2 to 4 or even more times per fermentation cycle, the pomace breaks down easier as the wine is pumped over or out of the tank to a délestage tank. So it's much better for us. As the wine goes down, and because the vat is conical, the pomace breaks and crumbles. So when we then pump the wine over, then it mixes with the pomace much better. So we have a further polyphenolic extraction during this operation. So in our mind, it's what it adds and not the contrary.
That's so insightful. That's a great answer. Thank you so much. Let's see. We have a question. We have a comment and a question. Dina says, I was struck by the acidity level of all of the wines. How do you get the grapes so ripe, yet retain such acidity?
Well, I guess they should ask the Bordelais why they adopted Touriga Nacional and Alvarinho in Bordeaux now. That is uncanny ability of the Portuguese varieties. But I'll let the winemakers speak. Sandra, do you want to talk to that, to the ability that these grapes have to retain the acidity in such harsh environments?
Yes, of course. I think we are so lucky with our varieties that are so adapted to our climate and our soils, and especially the old vines or the vines that have already a very good root system. They are so adapted to even some extreme climates. I'm speaking for Douro. Sometimes some years are very extreme and very continental climate, but with this very deep root system, they can get good water levels and minerals in order to prevent from the filtration or the shorter ripening cycle. So that's why and also during the nights in the Douro normally are very cool. So this is fantastic for keeping the acidity levels very high. So we can get a very good ripening and contains phenolic components, but still a very high acidity levels. That's why our wines are really fresh and intense and with a long aging capacity.
And Catherine, if I may add to what Sandra said to Dinah, the Douro has a reputation of having 2 seasons. It's 9 months of winter and 3 months of hell. Yes. So that diversion, that discrepancy in warm, scorching warm days and cold nights and below freezing winters is, I guess, is a major contributor to that freshness.
Such great insight. Or how about we take 2 more questions? Would you like to state?
No,
somebody else was speaking.
Sorry, Catherine. Just 2 words. At Quintanova, we are trying to short a little bit, or changing, or shift the normal cycle of the vineyard. So we are burning early, means in November, December, to try to have the bud break in beginning of March, because we don't have the frost problem with the Douro. And like this, we could pick the grapes on the end of August instead of middle of September, end of September. And like this, we keep more the acidity, more freshness into the wines. And probably we are going out of the normal stuff than the over-ripen and over-extraction.
Great. That was a great addition. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's see. 2 more questions. Do you see the subregions of the different DOCs becoming DOCs themselves?
Oof.
Who wants to take that on?
Sophia, how about you take that, Sophia?
No, I have to say, I haven't heard that. Maybe Sandra and Carlos are more aware. I haven't heard that. I have heard that maybe for other regions, but not for the Douro, to actually have 3 different DOCs for each of the subregions. So I don't think they are migrating to that kind of classification.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we've never heard of that, so I don't think so, no.
Yeah, I think the question is probably inspired by the fact that in the Côte-du-Rhône, the wines will go from Côte-du-Rhône to Côte-du-Rhône Village to their own names to become a DOC. There's a progression, there's a path to follow. I don't think in Portugal is that. These regions are very established. And they are not, Carlos, I don't know if you agree with me, they are not an indication of quality. They are just an indication of preferences and stylistic preferences sometimes. It's not that the Vinho Regional is better or worse than the DOC. It's just a geographic position of it.
Exactly.
No, I think...
yeah. Go ahead, Sandra.
Sorry. No, I think for many years it would be very good for the Douro that a system of appellations would be installed, because I think it's so different. Douro is such a wide region with so different microterroirs and microclimates and different expressions, even from the different rivers and tributaries. So I think I would love to see a system of appellations of the Douro. I think it would help a lot of the consumer. But this is my opinion.
No, thank you, Sandra. I think Carlos wants to say.
I've never really thought about it, to be quite honest. But I can tell you one thing. Many large port houses, it's a regular practice to blend wines from different subregions where they hold different quintas. So that would be somewhat confusing. If you're making a vintage port, that sort of half of it comes from the Cima Corgo and another half from Douro Superior. You see, so that sort of adds a little to the confusion. Or perhaps that's why we're not going in that direction yet.
Well, Catherine, I don't know about you, but I am thrilled that we kept this audience with us for so long. And I feel terrible because some people may be busy doing other things, but we are so excited that Napa Valley Wine Academy hosted us for this event, that all these winemakers in Portugal took the time to be here with us, answering questions and presenting their wines with such grace and humility. And Catherine, I'll leave it up to you to close. My heart is full. I want to thank everyone for being here.
Yes, no, thank you so much to everyone. We trust that you enjoyed the wines, getting to hear the winemakers speak, and of course, Eugenio's just, brilliant presentation. So the Napa Valley Wine Academy and Wines of Portugal just want to thank you all for being involved today. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yes,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.